This is the Bat Pod.
The Bat Pod presents Gotham Currents, a podcast about current releases of Batman comics.
Welcome to this edition of Gotham Currents. My name is Bill Beer, and joining me as always, John Coos.
Nightwing. How you doing?
Real good. We got are you okay over there? Is everything okay? I know we had some technical difficulties.
Well, shame on me for thinking my computer wanted to do some minor update. It looked like it uploaded a whole or downloaded a whole operating system. It took an hour. So I think I must have accidentally said yes to Windows 11 or whatever number they're on. Anyway,
Fun.
We're good now. We're good.
Yeah, we're here. We got a heck of a show. We got 5 books tonight. First book is Nightwing 122, Absolute Batman number 4, Batman and Robin Year 1 number 4, Two-Face number 2, and Batgirl number 3.
The Bat Pod is a spoiler podcast. Please read the comics we're reviewing so you can enjoy the show.
So if you'd like to join the conversation or email is the podcast at thebatpod.com. We are on Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook. Just search the Bat Pod podcast.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're the hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health evaluation of comic book characters.
We also chat with some of your favorite creators,
Al Ewing,
Erica Schultz,
Gail Simone,
Philip Kennedy Johnson,
Chris Claremont,
about their work on comics.
So check out all our episodes at capesonthecouch.com and follow us at Capes on the Couch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hashtag because comics.
Let's get into this. Starting with Nightwing. Nightwing 122. On with the show. Part 4 of Little Circus Boy. Let's talk about the cover real quick. What do you think, Bill?
It's a slightly interesting cover. You got Nightwing coming right at us. You got him and the Todds behind. And then you got this Cirque du Sin with a couple of different characters there. Olivia Pierce and this other dude. It's okay.
Well, I think we have a name for him, but I'll get into that in a second now. Yeah, it's all right. I don't need to expound on your expert analysis. So the writer is Dan Waters, artist Dexter Soy, letters Wes Abbott, and editor Jessica Burby. Our story opens on the roof of a building in Bloodhaven. The police chief is briefing Mayor Grayson Lynn, Nightwing's half-sister, on the gang war and the crime spree in Bloodhaven, and that is being knocked out by the Bloodhaven PD with the help of high-tech weapons supplied by the Spheric Corporation. Nightwing appears, explaining the police killed one of the teddies, a gang of teenagers who wear papier-mâché heads of cute teddy bears. He also explains that the Spheric CEO, Olivia Pierce, is manipulating everyone and that he has a history with her. And then we go into a flashback, back when we find a young Dick Grayson as Robin with Batman at a place called Cirque du Sin. They start walking through the fun house when Robin is attacked from behind by a masked blonde dressed as a majorette. She calls herself Columbina. They have a acrobat game of cat and mouse filled with pithy banter, along which she invites Robin to join her and her troupe of circus freaks. Robin suddenly is mesmerized by the sight of the Zanny, the puppet master we have fondly been referring to since this arc started. The Zanny calls Robin Little Circus Boy. Batman shows up to find Robin in a trance. Back to the present. The story is unconvincing for the police chief and the mayor. Not enough meat on the bone to say Olivia Pierce is playing the city. Suddenly, an explosion goes off at the police station. Nightwing chases the perp. It's a Flyboy, the genetically modified gang. Nightwing leaves him for the cops. Then we find Nightwing and Barbara Gordon in the now empty Titans Tower. The Titans are all in Metropolis for the time being. They have a conversation about what's transpired. The story ends with an injured female flyboy calling Nightwing on the device he gave them when they need help. And she says, Nightwing, they're going to kill us all. To be continued. So, Bill, what do you think here?
So we get a little more details here about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We open, as you said, you open up there on the top of police headquarters or something. You always want to say police headquarters because of Batman and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a regular building. I don't know. Well, maybe it's a police headquarters, but the police headquarters is just a couple blocks away, but blew up. So I don't know where they were. But anyway, go on.
No, they catch you up exactly what's going on here. You know, we had a cliffhanger last issue. He knows exactly who this woman, Olivia Pierce, is. We don't know at this point, but I think it's a good dynamic between these three because Maggie Sawyer is the commissioner, which I'd like to see more of her in this book, just because the dynamic of the commissioner and how he's related to the mayor. I've been enjoying this book so far. I have lots of questions.
I got some questions too, but let's hear some of yours.
Well, first of all, we get to meet this Cirque du Sin, and they're just basically a bunch of carnival-like carnies, or I don't know what you call
like an old circus with the word freaks is so un-PC, but that's what they would have been called in the past. You got the tall man, the strong man, or whatever. You got a collection of sideshow characters. Let's just call them that, right?
Well, yeah. And here's something interesting, because at one point, Robin meets up with this Columbina. Is that how you say it?
I would say Columbina.
Yeah. And he mentions, you get your name from the Commedia dell'arte.
Mm-hmm.
He says clown, but looking that up, it was the Commedia dell'arte was an early form of professional theater originating from the Italian theater and was popular in Europe between 16th and 18th century. And in English, it's converted, called Italian comedy. So they're like this comedy show per se with these freaks or whatever you want to call them.
So you're saying not a strong thread between the historical...
No, I don't think so, because Batman goes up against, these guys, and they look like they're going to be formidable, but no, not at all.
Right. Well, yeah, my question regarding the Cirque du Sin, and I obviously read this at least twice, it didn't really say, like, well, what do they do? Is it just
kill people?
Is that what it is?
It looks like they murdered. They had all these rich people. Some of them were murdered. They didn't take anything.
Right. From the okay, fair enough. But are they like, they're not Robin Hood type characters if they're not taking anything?
It doesn't seem that way.
They just don't like the rich, I guess. Okay. All right.
And then you got two things happening here. You have Robin who's hallucinating.
Right.
Because the first time he hallucinates when he grabs the trapeze stick or bar or whatever you want to call it, and it looks like a bone with some kind of, I don't know if it's flesh on it or not, and he goes, "Oh, gross."
Yeah, like, was there gum or slime?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, well, just to go back a little bit, like, I wasn't convinced, like, that Colin Bean is pitched to Robin to join them and have any, like, grounding for Robin to do it. Like, why would he say yes? Like, oh, okay, you're bad guys. I want to be a bad guy now, or something. I don't.
Give a bigger talk. What's your spiel? Convince me a little bit.
Give me your elevator pitch, or whatever, or whatever. You're giving me your pitch. But yeah, so there's that. But while we're still talking about this flashback a little bit, I found it funny, but I found it out of place a little bit. A couple lines from Batman, which make it like the first one that struck me as weird was, when before Robin, gets under the trance of the Zanny, but when they're still poking around the circus grounds or whatever, wherever they are, Robin concludes something, and then he goes, "Perhaps there's a darker game afoot, Robin." It almost sounds like Adam West or something. I thought, and then later, after he wakes him up from his trance and all this stuff, he says, "Gordon's here to bring these freaks into custody." Like, is that something Batman would have said? Like, bring these freaks? I don't know. So the lines just didn't match with Batman, and they were completely different from each other as well. Anyway, I don't know if you picked up on Batman's banter from the flashback.
I didn't really. It didn't. There wasn't anything that super bothered me, and there are things that do, but I didn't super notice anything, and I'm not quite 100% sure. This is sort of Robin's point of view here. I don't know if he's, what he's seeing is language has been affected a little bit, but I see your point.
I like the fact that we got a name for this guy. We can call him the Zanny now.
The Zanny.
Right?
I fail to believe he's a real person. Is he a real person? Because everything you see, you even see in this flashback, he's like this larger than life. They're the puppets, and he's like the puppet master, and he kind of opens up the top of the tent and is peeking in.
Yeah. Who is that the hallucinogen, or was that even before the hallucination started? Who knows? That's still unanswered. Why he's at the top of comic book pages, kind of pulling back things and stuff. Kind of weird. And
this has happened. How many issues has it been? We've seen him. We saw him last issue. He was on a computer screen, but he was only there when Dick wasn't looking. And she's like, he's seen when he wants to be seen.
Yeah,
which I haven't figured out what.
Well, we'll have to find out
what's going on there.
I guess it moved the story along a little bit. Like, we've got a little more context that there's history here, and one of the things that I failed to mention just now is that in the previous issues, I thought I was concerned that here's yet another group of people that knows who Nightwing is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm feeling better that they probably just know that the first Robin is Nightwing, but they don't know he's Dick Grayson. What do you think?
I see what you're saying there. I mean, we initially thought, for whatever reason, that, they knew who Dick's identity was as Nightwing, but they know Robin was in the circus just from the flashback. So it's possible. It would be nice if not every villain we come across knows secret identities of everybody.
Well, we talk about it a lot. But yeah, for sure. And the other reason I don't think they know it's Dick Grayson is, like, there's been scenes where Olivia Pierce has been talking about Dick Grayson as a sort of a different foe apart from Nightwing. I'm just going to want to believe for now that they don't know that it's Dick Grayson because, like we said, it's getting old that everybody knows who everybody is.
If you go back to the original first arc,
yeah,
it does have them. I think they do know his identity because they're holding the Graysons and Dick on that little whatever you call those thing. The little puppet master has them, but I don't hear them say the name.
Yeah.
So
to be continued.
Yeah.
So we'll find out.
Oh, the one other thing I wanted to say is that we thought maybe we discussed it the previous issue of Nightwing. There was something in his past, and maybe it's some character that we knew. Apparently, this is a new story that we haven't come across before. So,
right. Yeah. Okay. Columbina, created by. No.
Yeah.
she'll be famous in 50 years. All right. Well, let's move on to Absolute Batman number 4 with the crazy cape cover.
Absolute Batman number 4. It's interesting. The creators on this is a little bit different because Nick Dragotta doesn't do the art here. It says plot Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta, script Scott Snyder, artist Gabriel Hernandez Walta, colors Frank Martin, letters Clayton Cowles, associate editor Sabrina Futch, and editor Chris Conroy. And we get a cover here. We get Batman kind of extending out his new powers of that the cape. You know, it's like it hardens and there's a bunch of sticks that come out. What did you think of this cover?
Is he getting huger every time they draw him?
I think sometimes they're showing him exaggerated a little bit. I still don't know, and we still don't know how this cape works totally, what material that is made of. We get a glimpse inside here or something we'll talk about. But yeah, his cow ears looks overly extended here. He looks like he just took some of the venom, basically.
I know. Maybe it is just exaggerated for an art effect.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, he's those biceps, they're like the size of like a beach ball. Like they're huge.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah. So, all right.
So in this issue, a street gang is trying to shake down people in the community of Crime Alley for money in exchange for offer people protection. A woman refuses and is pushed off a roof. She is saved by the Batman. This Batman has teeth and claws and is holding a gun poised to shoot. Cut to an older flashback of Bruce with his father. Bruce tells him he is focusing on his project on bats. Bruce throws out the makeup and the teeth and refuses to use the gun. Bruce is working on building a Batman to be bigger while tracking the 10 Thieves gang. The gang is backed by the Maroney and Falcone families. Batman tracks one of the shipments and flips an 18-wheeler with a little hyper-powered remote-control Batmobile. In an older flashback again, Thomas tells young Bruce that he wanted to be a doctor after his father died of a heart attack, and he applied to med school. He and Martha discovered they were pregnant, so he became a teacher, but he always wondered, in another life, did he become a doctor? And Bruce and his dad are working on the project, and Bruce training to be Batman. We sort of get flashbacks between the two. They're all flashbacks, but these go from older and then younger Bruce. In the courthouse, Bruce tells Chill that he hates him and doesn't care what happens to him. The issue ends with Bruce finally realizing his vision of what he wants Batman to be, and him meeting Joe Chill at the prison phones because Chill wants to talk to Bruce. So I didn't know that this issue, even though I'm up on the solicits and that sort of thing, I didn't realize that our story wasn't going to continue in this issue, and it was all a flashback, which is not bad. But I was a little disappointed because after that cliffhanger last issue where he might take this deal with the Black Mask, I was really curious where that was going. So, but this is interesting because we get more details about Bruce and his father. We get how Batman started out, which one of the first flashbacks we get him, he almost looks like Dracula. With red eyes and fangs. And what did you think of his first appearance here?
It took me a second to realize whether this was Bruce Wayne or something from past or something, but then, you know, that sort of solves itself because he's trying new things, and it's weird. Like, I liked it, but the art is fine. I'm fine with the art, but because I think it's deliberately drawn kind of with less definition. But there's something about the way he looks in a couple of the panels that reminds me of something from the past, and I couldn't find anything. Like, was there a time where Batman in our reality, not our reality, I don't know, Earth One, Earth Prime, whatever you want to call it, was ever, you know, in the early days, golden age, tried to mimic a bat to the extent of adding fangs or something? Is this a throwback
I don't think
to
so.
something?
The fangs were ever added. I could be wrong, but I don't recall wearing fangs or any kind of, contact lenses to change the colors of eyes. I don't remember that. I remember, the cape was sort of like wings in the beginning, but nothing quite like this. But I could see how this would translate, because in some of the flashbacks, he's so enthralled with these bats that bats have created who he is just because he was stuck in that little bat building when his father was killed and the terrorist was attacking everybody. And
I think I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of images in stories where Batman's new on the scene, even especially Golden Age kind of themed stories, when like there's an artist rendition because there's no photographs of him yet. I think some of those in the past have misinterpreted him as kind of more like vampire-ish.
Yeah, like a Dracula
really
or something. Yeah, like news articles and that sort of thing.
Yeah, with an artist sketch. I know. I'm jumping forward just a little bit but it's cool that let's just stay on the theme of these costumes he's trying out. This second one is more like everything we're very familiar with. There's no major deviations of the costume. He's got the utility belt. He's got
same bat.
This bat symbol on his chest. And I kind of like what Snyder's doing here, because he's kind of saying that he's rejected this one because it wasn't effective enough. And it's kind of throwing shade a little bit on the Batman we know and love in a weird way. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I am. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool that he's rejecting the Batman costume that we are so familiar with. I thought it's just interesting. I don't know if you paused on that or not.
I mean, he tried a few different costumes here. The one like Dracula or vampire didn't really work for him. He wants to instill fear, and I guess it's just experimenting with what he has.
Right.
I find it really interesting, when he's looking, he's standing in front of this, almost looks like shoulder pads. Because he says, I should be intimidating, but even more so, like scary, and it should be more adaptable than ever. And then at the bottom of that page, you see this thing on his hand that it looks like he's testing the bat thumb, he calls it. But it's like ejecting these little, almost like a whip. But these whips can get hard, like he can stand on with his arms there like stilts. This is related something to the whole costume, the whole, not the whole costume, but the whole cape, because we get the cape can do all these crazy things, and it has something to do with this.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Like he's leading up to explaining the cape, and it also has to do with this backstory of him constructing this changeable bridge project that he's got in school. Mm-hmm. That it's modifiable, and I thought that was really interesting. So let's go into that real quick. On the dad, we learn that Thomas Wayne curbed his medical schooling because he needed to put food on the table, because they had, Martha and him had a son, and he was in the middle of med school, and he shifts gears and takes a job as a teacher. And then Bruce initially is feeling like, as some kids might, if they heard this story, it's my fault you're not a doctor. And then Thomas Wayne kind of lets him out, like, no. Like, no, I'm super happy being a teacher and all this other stuff. But I thought that was an interesting twist. It kind of adds I can't imagine telling my kid anything like that, even if you're trying to make it sound like everything worked out the way it was supposed to. It was like, hey, I was going to follow my dream, but I couldn't because you were born. What'd you think about that?
But the one question that I had, when we first started this series, and it's like, we learned a bunch of things about Bruce and his family and that sort of thing. And his father wasn't a doctor, he was a teacher. And it's like, that's a pretty big swerve. I wonder what happened down the line that changed that. And they explain that. We get to the fourth issue here, and it sort of explains why that happened, which makes total sense. I mean, it's very realistic the way that happened. So it doesn't make me think, well, he's supposed to be a doctor.
No, I know. No, it's fine. I'm cool with it. I thought the issue was good to provide some really in-depth background on the whole thing and the whole Joe Chill dynamic. And sort of leading us along on the technology he's developing to become the absolute Batman that we are learning about. And so, but then I don't know if you want to dive into the Joe Chill stuff, but I think it's important, probably, right?
Well, yeah, they give him an opportunity. This is young Bruce. Give him an opportunity to say something.
Right.
To Joe Chill, and he's basically like, I know Mr. Chill gets a statement today. Before I wanted to say something because I had a moment to think about it, and he just starts crying, and he said, I knew that this was as happy as it gets at that moment, and he wanted to stay in that moment and never leave. And then his father passes away, but what he says to Joe Chill is just, I hate you. I just need you to know that I hate you. You killed that happiness forever.
That was super powerful. I mean, think about what he's saying is in the moment before the incident at the zoo happened, young Bruce was actually self-aware enough to know that life's not going to get any happier than this, which is really, now, if that's true, that a kid would have that kind of forethought, great. But, or maybe he's just kind of recreating that.
He had time to think about this.
But it's kind of true, right? Like, even for everybody, right? Because when you're 5, 6, 7, whether you're poor, rich, well, actually, especially if you're poor, like, if you're happy, you're happy. And then real life starts happening, or you're cognizant of real life happening. Like when you're 7, 8, 9, all of a sudden you see your parents maybe struggling with the bills and your innocence starts to get lost in a lot. But he's saying that he knew at the moment in time, he goes, God, life isn't going to get any happier than this. And then boom, that came true with, his dad dying. And then so Bruce doesn't want to hear in court what Joe Chill has to say. So he says his piece, leaves, and then we find out at the end, sort of grown up Bruce Wayne, he's already playing Batman. He takes a trip to prison and he asks for Joe Chill, who's old looking now and kind of frail. And he's like, so, well, you had something you wanted to say? And so now he wants to know
what he was going to say.
Yeah. So this is a very angry Bruce Wayne throughout this story, which...
Well, wouldn't you be?
Yeah, for sure. But, I'm not... But even, like, the difference, I think, between Bruce Wayne, absolute Bruce Wayne, and all other iterations of Bruce Wayne... I'm talking about Batman, is that, Bruce Wayne's an angry person, but he's got this whole act of the playboy and the socialite and all that stuff. He doesn't even act, this Bruce Wayne doesn't even act like anything other than his Batman persona. They're closer. Am I making sense? There's no facade.
Because this version doesn't really have a Bruce Wayne persona.
Right.
It's all like, this Bruce Wayne and Batman is like the same person. There's no...
Exactly.
Because he doesn't have the money where he goes out there and he's going to be in the news and all. He's just a regular, Joe, basically. He's not going to be in the news and that sort of thing. So it is different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. I was concerned when you texted me that you weren't initially super happy with the sort of pause on the ongoing story and the cliffhanger, but it sounds like now you're good with it.
Well, yeah, because I wanted to read the next issue right away, so I grabbed it after we got off, and I'm reading it. I'm like, what? It's like a delay. So it wasn't like I was upset with it. It was just like I wanted more of the story.
Yeah.
So we got a little pause here, which wasn't bad. I'm enjoying everything that we're getting here.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's great. It's still top of your pile?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh
good.
yeah. Like number 5 is coming this afternoon. You know.
Is it?
Yes. Well, I just got it yesterday because of due mail order. So.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but I held off.
All right. Well, let's move on to what are we moving on? Batman and Robin Year One.
Yep.
Batman and Robin Year One. Yeah, there's no subtitle to this. It's just Batman and Robin Year One.
Yes.
Writer Mark Waid, artist Chris Samney, colorist Mateus Lopez, letters Caton Clowes with Chris Samney, and editor Andrew Marino. Another great cover. They've all been great. These could all be posters, man. You know?
Oh, especially this. I really like this one. You know, they're standing in front of the bat signal, not symbol, but they're standing in front of the bat signal. The Batman and Robin up the top is surrounded in like a purple.
Yeah.
And the way that he's in the dark and sort of in the light from behind, Robin's costume is like a reddish purple to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that contrast in colors there.
And Robin's facial expression he looks annoyed.
Yes, he does. Annoyed. He looks annoyed.
These are all great covers. So let's get into it.
Absolutely.
So we last left Batman and Robin at sea. They were on a cargo ship dealing with gangsters and Two-Face. Batman fell into the ocean, seemingly pinned under a shipping container at the bottom of the ocean. Our story opens with Robin jumping into the water. He swims down to find Batman struggling to get his foot free from under the container. Robin shines a bat light on the scene. Batman uses a piece of rebar to pry his foot free, and as he's doing so, he motions for Robin to go back to the surface. Robin looks sad and deflated, that instruction. At the surface, Batman admonishes Robin for going in after him, but then says the flashlight was helpful. As they climb into the Batboat, Batman says he's frustrated that he's on his heels when it comes to this new mobster in town. Robin reminds him that Two-Face blurted out his name, Grimaldi. We switch to a rooftop where General Grimaldi is monologuing to his crippled and apparently mute wheelchair-bound father. He's droning on about how strong he is as a crime lord and how weak his father was. He even puts the wheelchair out over the ledge a bit, to show a helpless old cripple how strong he is, I guess. Anyway, we move to a daytime scene at Wayne Manor where social worker Laura Lynn is paying a surprise visit to check up on Dick Grayson's well-being. Alfred has to stall as Batman and Robin are just getting back from the previous night's adventures. Bruce changes into workout clothes to play off that he was just doing that. And she asks where Dick is, and Bruce explains that he's a late riser. She immediately questions what is keeping him up late at night. Dick has been changing into his clothes, and he didn't know that Bruce said that he was just waking up. So Alfred runs to implore Dick to put on some PJs and act tired. She asks Dick how things are going, and he explains that he has learned a lot about Gotham and mentions crime statistics. This annoys Bruce. Miss Lynn tells Bruce that Dick needs more sleep because tomorrow is a new day. Dick picks up on this and asks Bruce about what's so special about tomorrow. Well, you guessed it, fair readers. Dick has to go to school. That night, Batman confronts Grimaldi in his office, basically telling him to scram from Gotham. He fights his way out of the building, thugs and whatnot taking him on, stairwells, whatever. And then the story ends with Alfred dropping Dick off at school. All right.
I really been enjoying this. Mark Waid and Chris Samney, because they're plotting this together. The story has been just nothing more than fantastic. You know, we get this cliffhanger from last issue. We wondered how that was going to work out, and Robin goes in to save him, but Batman like sort of berates him afterwards. You know, I would have saved myself. What were you thinking? You could have drowned.
Yeah, I like that, but I also saw a glimpse. I'm not sure if it was a big glimpse, but it was a subtle glimpse of Batman maybe catching himself based on the previous issue or two, where Alfred admonished him about about being there for Dick and stuff, and he says, but the flashlight was handy, and for Batman, that's high praise kind of at this point. You know, he's not always good. He's never been really good with calling out praise real time with his colleagues, his sidekicks or whatever. So I think that was a little attempt on his part to lift Dick up a little bit, and then he kind of expresses a little vulnerability. Kind of, it's almost like an excuse he's using for being a jerk by saying, "I'm just frustrated that I can't figure out this crime lord situation right now," and so I thought that was really I thought that was cool, and I thought the story flowed really well. I mean, that whole scene with her showing up, the social worker at the house the next morning, and it was cool. Like I almost felt like I could see this cartoon almost of this, like, you know, simultaneously she's at the front door, bat boats coming in through the whatever subterranean tunnel. At the same time, Alfred has to stall. I love that whole scene was so cool. Like I could visualize it like playing out on a screen. I don't know. What did you think of that whole scene?
Yeah, I really like that. You know, Alfred almost gives it away and says, "You're here really early." And she's like, "Yeah, I've been here a few times and nobody's ever home, so I thought I'd come early." And they said, "They're just," and he stops himself. They're still upstairs. And he presses this little button, which I thought was cool, that lets them listen in from the Batcave.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and they can hear what she's saying. So he pops out and went for a walk. Well, he's sweating from a walk. Is he not in shape? And as soon as he starts talking to her, she's like, "You charmed me the last time. Where did that get you?"
Yeah, I know.
He wants to know, how is he spending his nights? And then Alfred runs up there and like, "Get your pajamas on." And he's like, "I'm already dressed."
Yeah, I know. That was so cool.
Yeah, they brought him down, and he's yawning, fake yawns, of course, that he's so tired. And it's like, well, how late are you staying up? What's that? This whole scene was pretty great.
That panel with him yawning was priceless.
Yes.
And then he just can't help himself. He can't help dig on and get under Bruce's skin. He does it on purpose.
Right.
Where he's like, "I've learned a lot about Gotham, and you know, the crime rate's really high and this and that." And it's just, Bruce's face is just like counting to 10 in his head.
He's looking right at him where she can't see him, and he's giving him this stern look.
Yeah, super, super cool. Yeah, and then the Grimaldi thing and all that, it's fine. I don't know where all that's going. In some ways,
I really like that scene.
Which one?
The scene where Grimaldi takes his father out to the roof.
I'm not. You liked it because why? You're cruel and sadistic,
no,
like him.
No. Because we haven't got anything on Grimaldi. We haven't got much of anything. He arrived into town basically, and Two-Face was working with him a little bit, but we really haven't got. And he's starting this mob war, but he takes him up here, his father, to the building. And we don't know what condition his father's in, but he doesn't appear to be talking too much.
He probably had a stroke or something. I mean,
right, I would imagine. And he takes him up there and he said, "This is what failure looks like." Miami never was going to completely yours. Mama told you that. Says you had the resources, but you was hungry for power and you were loud, like with a big stick. He says, a good general controls firmly but quietly. And he says, failure was conquering a fraction of Miami. Success is taking all of this. And unlike you, Father, I'm a winner. As he's tipping him over the edge, and he does tell him, I'm not going to drop you. He says, I want you to see when I succeed, or what a success I've become. He really is a monster.
He is. And I hope that they don't, now that they've done this, I hope they don't just leave it at that, because, okay, fine. You know, you might have a father that you don't entirely respect for whatever reason, but to torment him, I hope there's more discovered from more flashbacks or monologues or something for him to be this cruel to his father. You know, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, but the Grimaldi character, you know, when he's interfacing with Batman, I mean, did you get anything out of that other than Batman say leave town?
Yeah, well, I thought it was cool the way Batman kind of snuck in. He had this box of bats that he brought in.
Yeah.
And he basically tells him, to leave town. He basically said, General Anthony Grimaldi, U.S. Army Intelligence, dishonorable discharge, not surprising. And he basically tells him, you're going to leave. And the biggest thing that I got out of this, he underestimated. He thought coming to Gotham was going to be easy. This Bat character wasn't going to be a big deal. He could get him out of the way.
Yeah.
The one thing I noticed in this scene when Grimaldi tells, his thugs to kill him, is Batman reaches into his bat belt and doesn't open the top, but opens from the bottom this little compartment, and it drops all these little discs, that attract the bats that he put on everybody. I like that scene, and I like seeing that the utility belt used like that.
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. If you're with using gravity as your friend, that you would pop something and it would drop out of the belt versus have to pull it out of the belt from the top.
Yeah,
I thought that was a cool detail, and I love those. I was going to mention, if you didn't, that those little things that he placed on the guys must have had screaming sonar, because I thought that was really clever, and almost like some of the stuff that happens in comic books, as you may know, you have to do a lot of suspend your disbelief. Yeah. That seems like something that could be actually real. Like if you went to the trouble of bringing the bats, they would be attracted to some high pitched sonar thing that we can't hear.
Well, if you think about this, I think this is a direct shout out to Frank Miller's Year One, because if you recall, when he was in that building and he tried to escape, he touched the little signal on his boot that sent the bats in, and that's how he escaped. And basically, he used the bats to enter and escape, which I really liked. And that scene where he's jumping off the roof, with his cape fully extended, I like that a lot. It's real small. Too bad it wasn't like blown up and in more detail, but I like that a lot.
I probably haven't read that in 20 years. I need to read that again. So I completely forgot that kind of detail from Batman Year One. But it makes perfect sense that Mark Waid would go to that. It makes perfect sense.
Definitely.
So.
And then, Grimaldi's saying here at the end, he's saying, this isn't your guys' fault. This was on me because I underestimated the bat and that sort of thing. And as he's given this speech, it sort of blends into Robin in his first day of school, or, school since he's moved in with Bruce and Alfred. And the end of his Grimaldi's conversation, he said, there is no prison that can hold him on earth, that can hold him, for a man that's determined enough. And then you're looking at Dick Grayson in his face that he said to school, and it's sort of kind of, you get that same thing, he doesn't want to go to school. He wants to escape. This is like a prison.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended like that. I really like that.
No, I like everything about it. Do we know how long this is? Because
it's 12 issues
on League of Comic Geeks. Oh, it's 12. Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, good. Okay, good, because they only have like solicit type stuff out for 5 and 6. But okay, good. All right, on. All right, let's move on.
That was a good issue.
That was a good issue. Oh, we got next.
We're gonna have some Two-Face.
Two-Face, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, basically, the first issue we didn't know what we were getting into. I didn't know what I was getting into when I read this. So our next issue is Two-Face number 2. Your writer, Christian Ward. Artist, Fabio Veras. Colors, Ivan Placentia. Letter, Hassan Ostaman Athanu. And I know I butchered that name. Apologies. Cover, Baltimore Reviews. Associate editor, Jessica Burby. And editor, Rob Levin. And we get a cover here. It's Two-Face standing behind a card that he's splitting in two. One Harvey and one a full Two-Face. What did you think of this cover?
Oh, it's cool. It's allegorical. And you got the, I think that might be the White Church or something.
Yeah, the White Church behind him.
So,
it almost looks like, those are villains. It looked like Bane there. It looks like the Mad Hatter. Killer Croc, maybe.
Croc, maybe.
Maybe. It's hard to tell. It's kind of blurry behind him.
It's a fine cover.
So, in this issue, the White Church we were introduced to last issue, we have Two-Face, who is actually Harvey Dent, pretending to be Two-Face, Judge Reaper, and the Gavel. This White Church moves from place to place and governs the underworld. And oh, by the way, there's a shadow hand that is trying to undermine their work. Harvey is representing the king of the Royal Flush Gang in a divorce. There's one problem. The terms of the prenup specify the death penalty for infidelity, and the queen has pictures of him apparently sleeping with the White Rabbit. But the king insists he never did it, so Harvey has to delay the proceedings long enough for his assistant, Lake Cantwell, to infiltrate the Pink Palace and try to find out how the images were faked. Two-Face, meanwhile, is stuck in the mind prison, a large psychic prison filled with memories of other convicts that Harvey put away as district attorney, including Salvador Maroni. After Dr. Boré, the lawyer for the Queen, complains about the delay, Ace breaks into the White Church to save his father, the king. The Queen tries to off the king. While there's a distraction from Ace, it is revealed Dr. Boré is False-Face. As Lake Cantwell arrives with evidence that the pictures were faked, False-Face escapes, and Two-Face plans his escape from the mind prison as we meet the warden, and our issue ends with the Shadow Hand and his associates revealed. The White Rabbit, Di, Doubt, Gina Hudson, and False-Face. So we get a second issue here of Two-Face. I really like how this White Church is set up. It moves place to place. And, he even has a new character that's introduced this issue called Meerkat 1 that keeps an eye out for the Dark Knight, which I find interesting. So are you familiar with the Royal Flush Gang? Is that a...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I not this iteration, but I'm sure it's the same dynamic. It's Ace through 10, King's the leader. Usually Ace, in a lot of my reading, has been an android.
Yes, he's an android, and he's probably been around the longest because these two characters, the King and the Queen of Hearts, are Rex and Regina Quintain. And their first appearance is only from 2022. They first appeared in Punchline the Game #1. So they haven't been around for a long time. Because the Royal Flush Gang, it's been around. It was created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sikowski is Justice League America #43. So they've been around for a while. Ace, is a character that gets destroyed a lot. I believe, in those early issues of Justice League International, he got taken out and rebuilt and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. And I remember the Royal Flush Gang, and I could be wrong, but I kind of remember them in Super Friends. Now I could be wrong. I didn't look it up to see if they were actually in Super Friends, but I remember them fondly, and I thought they were always a cool team. Well, we get a divorce here. When you got married, did you get a prenup? Did that prenup say that if there's infidelity, one of you must die?
No,
I imagine not.
No, we thought about it.
That's pretty hard. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, I didn't. But real quick, I don't think they were ever in the Superhero Friends comic. I mean, a Super Friends TV show. I think they were in comics, so, and they might have been in Justice League. Don't quote me. But anyway, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they seem to be all over the place. They've been appearances everywhere.
Just for our JLI lovers, the Royal Flush Gang was important in getting Booster Gold credibility, because I think to defeat Ace, I think he threw up a force field that cut him in half or something like that. But anyway, no. But this whole thing about Harvey, we talked about it last issue with the court, and he's trying to be that DA guy, and he's he can't be. The Harvey side of him really wishes he could be the DA again, but this is the best he's got right now, is settling these disputes between these villains. But he wants to get to the truth, right? Because he believes in this justice, as weird as it is. I find that really cool. And then at the same time, you've got the locked away Two-Face just begging to get out. I find that back and forth very intriguing, and I like the way it's being presented in the book.
I like that a lot too. It feels like this Harvey, is trying to make up for past indiscretions by, he's done bad things. He's a villain, but he's trying to at least do something good here, try to make up for some of that. And he's trying to keep the Two-Face side of his personality at bay. And I like how that is. I like this little mind prison.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. He has Salvador Maroni that basically created Two-Face. They're in prison. And when they're having a conversation, he's like, this is sort of my background as far as chess goes, but, you might be just inventing that because I'm just a memory to make me more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of psychosis going on in that head for sure. Let's talk about this. What did you call? What I didn't catch her name. Harvey's little helper. What's her name again? Blake Cantwell. So she goes off to try to find out what the deal is with this photograph that's been taken of the White Rabbit getting busy with the King of Hearts, right? And then I guess it's all staged, and she walks in on her and finds the remnants of a costume, Queen of Hearts costume. What I find interesting, and if you're looking at that page, she's got a gun pointed at her with the costume pieces sitting there, and then the White Rabbit jumps off the balcony, and Cantwell tries to shoot her. What if I don't know. I thought that was a bit extreme, didn't you? I don't know. I don't know if you've picked up on it.
What was she just trying to? It looks like she's trying to kill her.
I found that was very, very odd. But and then we go,
and that she's laying there and sitting on a bed, with a costume of the evidence is right there.
Yeah, it's all very strange. But there's something about the White Rabbit. She can split into like a duo damsel kind of person.
Yeah, are you familiar with her? Is that?
Yeah, not like at the tip of my tongue on her power set. I mean, I know I've read her.
Her first appearance was when the New 52 came along. They had a Batman book called Batman the Dark Knight. And she was in that book. I wasn't overly impressed with, she can split herself into two people, and they look completely different. One is the The White Rabbit is kind of pale looking, but they are actually two people with independent thought and actions that she can split herself into.
Okay.
But to be honest, she wasn't very thrilling to me. It wasn't anything that exciting. It was almost like having a Playboy bunny in the book, I think. So,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I like when they bring back characters. So I guess.
Yeah, we have False Face, who was, posing as this lawyer. Whatever this Shadow Hand was doing, they was trying to get the king killed for whatever reason. They were trying to get Harvey to kill the king. I'm not sure what they were trying to do here exactly. I assume future issues will kind of open over everything. But when it was revealed, the Shadow Hand and all his minions, what did you think about that reveal? Was it like, oh, cool, or I have no idea who any of those guys are.
I hardly know who. I don't know who. I should have looked them up. Did you look them all up?
I did that for you.
Thank you.
False Face, his first appearance was in Batman 113, but he also was a character that appeared on Batman 66, where he would do crimes and have false faces. Di, this apparently is her first appearance. Doubt, he just appeared Batman Brave and the Bold number 18, and I actually read that issue yesterday just to see what he was all about, and he can whisper and bend people's mind with a whisper. He made Batman doubt himself and kind of got away from Batman, and then it's all like he got into a trance or whatever. So when he went to attack Doubt again in this story, he covered his mouth with some kind of sealant so he couldn't say anything, and the dude brought out a recorder, with his voice recorder, and then at the end of that story, Batman sort of made him doubt that he was Doubt, basically, with his same recorder, with his voice. He kind of edited it with Doubt's voice. So that's his only appearance, but he has like snake tattoos on his face. You can't really see too much of it here because they're only in one panel. And of course, we have, the White Rabbit and her counterpart. And then this Shadow Hand, False Face, of course, and then this Shadow Hand that he says, Harvey Dent took everything from me, and I plan on returning the favor. So,
yeah, I'm gonna go back and read some more about the White Rabbit. I remember when you mentioned that Batman Dark Knight comic.
Yeah.
I actually remember liking it, and I love the way it was drawn too.
Yeah, David Finch was the artist on that at the beginning.
So good. I'm gonna do some back reading on Rabbit, just the heck of it, but. The whole Jana Hudson dynamic with it as well. But no, this final page was interesting. I guess this final piece was this Shadow Hand guy is saying that Harvey Dent took everything from him, and now he's going to return the favor. So is this somebody we know that is it Maroney or somebody?
I would think it's somebody. No, I don't have an idea at this point, but I think it's definitely somebody he knows. One thing in here, did you find it weird when Harvey attacks Ace and sort of gives him acid to the face? Because he said, this stuff ruined my day in court, and he's just an android, so that's not really going to do anything to him, is it?
Assuming this is an android version, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the way the bubbles... word bubbles stuff you have.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I thought it was strange.
Right.
Maybe symbolic. All right. Well, without further ado, let's move on to our fifth and final book of this episode, which is Batgirl Earth 3. And Batgirl number 3 is Mother Part 3. I'll just do credits here. The writers Tate Bromble, artist Takeshi Miyazawa, Mike Spicer did the colors, letters Tom Napolitano, and editor Jessica Burby. What'd you think of the cover?
Cover looks okay. I mean, she's fighting in what looks to be a train and taking out some thugs.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
It was fun. All right, moving on. Okay, so Batgirl, the Cassandra Cain version, is on the run with her mother, Lady Shiva. They are being pursued by assassins. They are traveling by train. Shiva says that they are on their way to meet allies in this war. Shiva and Cassandra argue a lot. Not surprising, given their history. Cassandra is mad that Vietnamese restaurant proprietors, the Baos, might be dead. See the last issue. Cassandra says that Shiva is not her family. The Bat family is. And she even shows Shiva a picture of them, all out of costume. So if Shiva doesn't know their identity, now she knows. Stephanie Brown spoiler, whatever. Fine. Shiva probably knows, right? Everybody else seems to. But anyway, and then all of a sudden they start fighting on the train. Well, they've been fighting. I'm not saying fighting, but arguing, fighting. They're just fighting back and forth, page after page. There's all these people on the train, and they kind of look downtrodden and stuff, and then almost like peasants. And Shiva describes them as the allies and the innocents they protect. So there's some people that look kind of more assassin-like, and there's some people that look like they're the huddled masses. Anyway, these people are all the Order of Shiva. Shiva introduces Cassandra as her daughter, and Cassandra quickly puts on her mask to hide her identity. Too late. So anyway, they introduce this character named Jayesh, who's a high priest. He gets sad when he learns that his brother died defending Shiva back in issue 1 in the Temple of Shiva. Jayesh explains to Batgirl that the Order is split into 2 parts. One group are the fighters, called the Destroyers. The other are the healers. They're called the Restorers. The latter helps the down and out in our societies. And this whole thing goes on for 5 pages, this whole explanation of their role and what they do. And then all of a sudden, this assassin comes into one of the trains, and Batgirl immediately attacks, but Shiva tells her to stop, stating that that's an ally. Batgirl then fights through the train across some really nicely done panels where it shows her kind of going through the train, just roundhouse kicking people to the face, and she ends up in the caboose to find Nissa Al Ghul, Talia's sister, who says, "Welcome to the Resistance, Batgirl." And boy, did I butcher that at the beginning there, but you got the point. So what'd you think, Bill?
Again, I think this is an interesting title. This issue didn't move a lot. I think we're getting a lot here, but how she doesn't trust this woman. She doesn't trust her mother. Her communication skills, a lot of it is nonverbal. She reads a lot into people and things because everything that she sees, she interprets it
right
by looking and feeling and that sort of thing. I found it interesting. Yeah. It didn't move the story too much. I did like the fight scene where it was 3 different pages that she's fighting through this train because she sees these allies that aren't allies. And as she's talking through this, she's talking about, this is what I like. She says, "I am Barbara's will. I am Stephanie's heart. I am Tim's wit, Jason's girt, Damien's guts. I am Duke's hope, and I'm Dick's faith. I am Alfred's care, and I am Bruce's pride," as she's fighting.
Yeah. You like that a lot?
I liked it.
I thought some of those were a bit of a reach. Is she saying that she's all those things rolled into one?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like that's her family, and that she's pulling something from everybody.
Yeah,
that's what I got. In reality, there's not a lot that happened in this book.
No, there's not.
There really isn't. I mean, we get the same thing with her and Lady Shiva and how she doesn't trust. And it at the beginning here, I feel like she's not seeing anybody but Lady Shiva, and there's been these people around her the whole time. Did you get that?
Now that you say it, I kind of do, because when you talk, she's always looking at, she could see people's nonverbal communication better than anybody because the fact that she was not trained to speak has enhanced all her other senses, right? So we got that. We covered that probably the last couple issues. I like what you're saying here is that she is really watching her mother, like to the exclusion of everyone else. And because it shows those little thought bubbles of interpreting facial movements of Lady Shiva in particular. So, but what's really weird about this story is like, I know a lot of this stuff is happening in one way or another to explain or cultivate this relationship, this mother-daughter relationship, which is cool. But the pace in which it's going and the reveal hasn't really happened yet, unless I'm dense, of why anybody's after them. Like, have you gotten a grip on why
They keep saying that, they were going to come after and kill you. It didn't have anything to do with me. They were going to come out and kill you anyway. And she keeps getting that because she keeps blaming her mother that she's in this because of her. But she keeps saying basically they're here to kill you no matter what. They would have took out your friends.
But why?
Yeah, I don't know. This arc is called Mother, and we're part 3 of 6 already. And we really haven't got focus of really what's going on. We get introduced here at the end to, Nessa Al Ghul. Is that somebody you're familiar with?
I when she said Nissa, I knew who she was.
Yeah.
Without
I mean,
her
she's
saying,
made some appearances in some TV shows and stuff. But Death and Maidens, written by Greg Rucka in the early 2000s, that's where she appeared.
Well, I do know that she's not like the favored daughter of
she's
Raj.
like the half sister.
Okay.
She never gets mentioned. Hardly ever. So she appears here with 2 other people. I recognize the lady on the left. I don't know who she is. And the guy, I'm not sure who he is either. It's just I'm not familiar enough with Batgirl and her world to know, some of the...
Now that you say it, I think she was pretty significant actually in that Batgirl series from 2000 and beyond. Because it's all tied together with the League and Assassins and stuff. But you got the Order of Shiva assassin-looking guys, and now you got the League of Assassins on top of it. So it's going to be interesting, like who's who in this scene. But we'll see. It's fine.
I'm interested to know if you're a Batgirl fan of Cassandra Cain and you've read everything she's been in, how you feel about this book. Are you like, oh, this book is incredible. I love how this story is going. I know all these characters. Or somebody like me that has only read her if she appeared in a Batman book or a crossover or something like that. And I don't really have a connection to some of these characters. Her mother, obviously, but the other characters I really don't know too much. And it feels like it's okay to me. It feels like that if we weren't podcasting about this book, I may not be reading this book. But since we're podcasting, of course, I'm following along. But I'm hoping that we're going to get a real video or something that really gets me going on this book. Because this is probably, and not saying anything bad about this book, for me personally, it's probably lower on my stack just because I don't feel the need to, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it compared to some of the other things that we're reading.
You're conjuring up some weird feelings I have about this character, and makes me want to go back and read that first story again. Like 5 years worth of stuff, though. It's a big commitment, but I really liked it. What I mean by weird emotions or weird feelings about this character is that when I liked her more when she was kind of mute and kind of distant and hard to penetrate in terms of more, like I liked her more then than when she just became yet another member of the Bat family, and because she was such a hard like a hardened character, and yeah, she's been softened up, and that's what they're trying to say is that her family is the Bat family and stuff, but she lost some of her own identity, I think, over time, is what made her kind of unique at the beginning. Like in Birds of Prey, I don't know are you still reading that?
Yes. I like the way they use her in there.
I like the way they use her in there with respect to Big Barda. They call her Little Bat and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But she doesn't have currently, in my opinion, she doesn't have a unique purpose versus like the other Bat family members, because like she used to be depicted as having like Batman having to restrain her from hurting people too much and stuff, and she doesn't and she doesn't do that anymore. So like what makes her special seems to be missing to me. Maybe this book will bring some of that back. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense.
No, it makes sense. I'm interested to know, what makes her, what this book is all about, what we're going to find out, what, this adventure is going to reveal. What are we going to get? I really want to read this book and give me a reason to do so. The first 3 issues have been okay to me. They're
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so you're saying that you might not read this book?
I wouldn't read. I probably would have dropped this after 2 issues if I wasn't reading it for this podcast. Since I'm reading it for this podcast, I read the 3rd issue, but it didn't. I don't have a sense of, if I miss this issue, I'm going to be really missing something, or I'm missing reading this. I want to feel that way. I would feel that way about Nightwing. I would feel that way about the Batman books, even the Two-Face book right now. Catwoman, maybe not so much. Catwoman's okay too. I mean, it's not I hate the books, but Batgirl and Catwoman is probably at the bottom, with Catwoman being down there. But I'm not saying it's a bad book. It's just maybe it's not catching me at the moment.
We could wrap it up with this little sort of tie a bow around sort of what we're reading stuff. I mean, because of Ultra, I'm pretty much reading everything, good, bad, or ugly. With the exception of, I gave Poison Ivy a shot. I think I commented on here that there's layers upon layers of this ecotourism stuff. It gets boring to me, so I just don't read that one. And I don't read. I don't know if Harley is in continuity. I mean, is it even still? Is that a weekly or I don't even know.
No,
I don't read that.
It's still going. It's just I've never been much of a Harley Quinn fan. I liked when she appeared in Batman around 100 or so. They really delve into the anti-hero aspect, and I liked her more that way than the way she's portrayed, but that's not a book that I read either.
Well, right now, bottom of my stack of books I'm reading is Flash. So Birds of Prey and Catwoman and Batgirl here are ahead of Flash right now. I don't mean to go out of my way to dump on Flash, but I want the Flash book to be better. So they're not on the bottom for me right now. These books, Flash is rough.
The Absolute books are very good right now.
Yeah,
Green Lantern books.
Yeah, you're going to try to convince me to cover Green Lantern Corps. But
no, I didn't. I only said that once.
But I love this launching off book that just came out on Ultra.
The Fractured Spectrum.
Oh, it was cool.
Yeah,
it was definitely cool.
Yeah.
So anyway,
then that leads in right to Green Lantern Corps, and we're talking about when we cover DC Currents. Right now, we're covering the team books. Gotham, we sort of stay in Gotham, so it'd be interesting. I tried to tell John that Green Lantern Corps was a team book, but so far he's not having any of it. But no, mostly everything that I've read is good. There are things that don't catch me as much, when things come out. Like, I want to read this when it comes out. I want to read that. But there's some things that are like, I'm not as enthused with. But, it's not
there's a lot of good books. There's a lot of good books right now.
Yeah. So,
It's funny. I know we got to wrap it up, but I had never considered myself a big Superman guy. I like him a lot, but Action and Superman and World's Finest are right up there at the top of my list. I have so much fun with reading those books right now. To be honest with you, they're solid.
I remember really loving Superman in the early to mid 90s. You know, Death of Superman, the triangle numbering, and that sort of thing. And I haven't really felt that way. The books now seems, I don't know if the interconnectivity of all this all-in stuff has gotten me, but I've been reading more now than I think I ever read of different titles.
Yeah. Good. All right. I think we're heading into the teen books next.
Here's the thing. We are 100% caught up.
What?
There's a couple DC current books that are out, but all the Gotham current books are caught up.
Oh, good.
So I believe the only one out currently is Titans, which we cover in DC Current. So we'll see what comes out next week. I know Detective Comics should be out, so we'll see.
That's top for me right now.
Yeah. So we'll see. So we'll be back here soon, probably within a week. And we thank you for staying current, Gotham Currents. We will see you later.